Nicole Hutchison and Nick Harris here on day 3 of the NFL Combine. Having you covered for the Dallas Cowboys. We got a chance to hear from the DBs and tight ends today. A lot of talent, a lot of good stuff. Couple of formal interviews, a couple of informal interviews with the Dallas Cowboys from these players. Let's just start with DBs, right? Who stood out to you today?
Yeah, I think it's pretty interesting that the Cowboys are taking a couple of formal interviews with high-round projected corners. You can start with Nate Wiggins out of Clemson. He's a guy that's gotten some first-round projections as late as early second round. I would have to think the Cowboys' only opportunity to grab a guy like Wiggins would be at pick 24. So you look at an opportunity potentially for the Cowboys to be looking on the defensive side of the ball there in the first round. So Nate Wiggins out of Clemson, formal interview, as well as Kalen Carson, Wake Forest corner, will have a formal interview, and then Kamari Lassiter, Georgia corner, is going to have a formal interview. Lassiter's a guy I like in the draft process as almost a perfect complement, a perfect clone as to what Jordan Lewis has been able to do in the nickel over the course of his career with the Cowboys. So if the Cowboys are not able to bring Lewis back, impending his free agency, I think a Lassiter would be a fun fit there. Yeah,
another cornerback, TJ Tampa, you actually heard from him as well. He had a formal interview with the Dallas Cowboys. I grabbed him on the side and asked him, what attracts you to this Dallas Cowboys DB room? And I said, Al Harris, right? You see the development that he's made with Deron Bland, and he said that, they fly to the ball. What do you think, what kind of potential do you feel like TJ Tampa out of Iowa State has?
Yeah, TJ Tampa, I think, was the best a DB in the Big 12 last year. He's able to move around in the secondary. He played on the outside. He played inside. He also played a little bit of safety as well during his time with the Cyclones, but being able to cover a big range. He's really strong in man coverage, really strong in zone coverage. I think he's one of the more better put-together DBs here at the Combine.
Evan Williams out of Oregon, what potential do you see in him as well?
Yeah, safety informal interview that the Cowboys were able to make. Evan Williams, got to see him at the Senior Bowl, and he does a really good job as well as being able to cover a big range and kind of be a quarterback of a defense from that third level. You want it in the second level, a linebacker that can really know what's going on with all 11 players on the field, but Williams is a sneaky guy there in the third level that does the same thing.
Yeah, he mentioned that when you ask him about his skill set, what's the best attribute, he says, well, I'm just, relentless to the ball. That's exactly what he said. So, hopefully a guy like that could, have some potential as well to add to that DB room for the Dallas Cowboys. But now we've got to talk about free agency. Stefan Gilmore, Jaron Kearse, Jordan Lewis, of course. Do you see any potential or hope that the Cowboys can bring one of those guys back?
Yeah, I think they'll have conversations with all three. And then talking to Stephen Jones earlier in the week, he was able to touch on Stefan Gilmore and what he was able to bring this past season from a leadership standpoint to an on-field play standpoint. Obviously, his injury there in the final game against the Commanders, it may have affected what they could do schematically against the Packers in the playoffs from a defensive standpoint. But what he was able to bring was invaluable. And I think they will definitely get at the bargaining table with him and see what that price could look like to potentially bring him back to the Cowboys, but I wouldn't consider any of those three a done deal that they come back.
Yeah, now moving on to the offensive side of the ball, tight ends, and quite a few informals, quite a few that have not met with the Dallas Cowboys at all, but when you look at that room, it's not really any need or any really need to add any guys to that room. Luke Schoonmaker, Jake Fergie-Ferg. Do you think that the Cowboys should address that position?
Yeah, I don't believe so. When you look at how many picks the Cowboys have this upcoming draft, and they'll get a couple of comp picks here in the next couple of weeks that'll be able to add to that, I don't feel like when you look at the needs, you need to be able to draft a tight end. And if you do, it's day 3 on a pick where you feel like you can just kind of take whoever's the highest player on your board. And that's probably what Linda Wells is doing here, tight ends coach for the Dallas Cowboys. Just meeting with all these guys, getting a good feel of who they are off the field and on the field, and then if the opportunity presents itself in the 6th or 7th round to go grab one, then they have the opportunity to do that. But you look at the tight end room up top with Jake Ferguson, I think he exceeded all expectations last year in being able to stamp himself as a starting tight end for the Cowboys. Then you look behind him, Luke Schoonmaker, a second-round pick last year. They already used a high-value pick on a tight end last season. And then you have Peyton Hendershot and John Stevens Jr. will be coming off of injury, made a lot of noise in training camp. They're excited about what he can bring whenever he comes off his ACL injury. So I feel like that room is pretty established.
Taking those two position groups, DBs, tight ends, where do you rank those amongst the others?
Yeah, as far as needs go.
As far as needs.
Yeah, as far as needs go, I would look at DBs probably in that 3 to 4 range. I'm looking at offensive line. I'm looking at running back, defensive tackle, and then corners is right there in probably that 3-4 range with defensive tackle. So being able to add depth to that room and being able to add a guy, even if you do bring back Stefan Gilmore and Jordan Lewis, I think it would be huge towards this team's success.
All right, still positions to still hear from tomorrow. You'll hear from Jerry Jones. Of course, Nick Harris will have you covered, so make sure to tune in for all of that coverage.